was the Norwegian climber Kristen Harila and the Nepali mountaineer Tenjin Lama Sherpa who received a hero's welcome when they arrived in Nepal. Both the mountaineers climbed Mount K2 ranging 8,611 meters on July 27th, creating a record of conquering all 14 of the world's tallest peaks in just 3 months. Hello and welcome. You're watching Inside South Asia with me, Bhairavi Singh. Focus today is India. Close to 3 months of ethnic violence in Manipur has now dominated the monsoon session of Parliament, which has been rocked by heated exchanges between the government and the opposition. Rahul Gandhi, who was recently reinstated as an MP by the top court, made a blistering attack on the government. The government hit back, saying Gandhi's comments and gestures lack dignity. Our next report has more.
विपक्ष के कुछ दलों के लिए उनके आचरण से, उनके व्यवहार से उन्होंने सिद्ध कर दिया है कि देश से ज्यादा उनके लिए दल है, देश से बड़ा दल है, देश से पहले प्राथमिकता दल है। मैं समझता हूं आपको गरीब के भूख की चिंता नहीं है, सत्ता की भूख यही आपके दिमाग पे सवार है।
Prime Minister Modi speaking in Parliament, attacking the opposition for its comments as the government sailed through the no-confidence motion against it over the Manipur violence. Manipur has witnessed violent ethnic clashes between the hill tribes and the valley-based Métis since May over the latter's scheduled tribe status. Over 180 people have died in the violence and 60,000 displaced. The Manipur row has dominated the monsoon session of Parliament, with the opposition for days demanding the Prime Minister break his silence on the issue and adamant that there be a detailed discussion in the House, the government holding out and instead offering a short-duration discussion addressed by the Home Minister Amit Shah. Finally, in a last-ditch attempt, the opposition filing a no-confidence motion. The motion, which had practically no chance of getting passed, was merely an attempt to compel the Prime Minister to speak in the House and to corner the government. The BJP comfortably placed in the lower house at 301 seats in the current strength of 539 Lok Sabha members.
आज तक वो मणिपुर क्यों नहीं गए? राहुल जी गए, इंडिया अलायंस के विभिन्न पार्टीज गए, गृह मंत्री जी गए, एमओएस होम गए, पर देश के मुखिया होने के नाते प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी क्यों नहीं गए? ये है सवाल पहला। हमारी जनता की आवाज है।
Meanwhile, in a no-holds-barred attack on the Prime Minister, Rahul Gandhi accused the government of the politics of hate and division. His comments created furor in Parliament. Many of Gandhi's remarks on Bharat Mata, the violence in Manipur and in Nu in Haryana even expunged.
कुछ ही दिन पहले मैं मणिपुर गया, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नहीं गए, आज तक नहीं गए, क्योंकि उनके लिए मणिपुर हिंदुस्तान नहीं है। इन्होंने मणिपुर में सिर्फ मणिपुर के नहीं,
It was not just his words but his gestures too that created ruckus in the House. The Treasury benches led by Union Minister Smriti Irani called Gandhi a misogynist for allegedly blowing a flying kiss in Parliament that seats female members. Irani said Gandhi's actions lack dignity.
When the House of the People, where laws are made to protect the dignity of women, during the course of a session stands witness to a man's misogyny, my question is, should he be brought to task?
मैं आपका धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूं।
Rahul Gandhi was reinstated as a member of parliament just ahead of the vote. The Supreme Court suspended the conviction orders against him in the Modi surname defamation case on August 7th. The top court's orders paved the way for the Congress leader to return to Parliament after officially restoring his status as an MP. The court itself took cognizance of the violence in Manipur. In scathing remarks against the government and the state police in Manipur, India's top court, headed by the Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, stated that there was a complete breakdown of law and order and the constitutional machinery in the ethnic violence-hit state. Terming the investigation being carried out by the Manipur State Police as tardy and too lethargic, the top court pulled up the law enforcement machinery over the continuing unbridled ethnic violence. The Chief Justice remarked that the state police was incapable of investigation. The court also took note of the very few arrests made in Manipur despite over 6,000 FIRs filed in the state. A three-member bench led by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud began hearing the case on August 8th. This after two survivors moved the apex court against the central and state government of Manipur. But the rest of the country took note of it only after a video began circulating on social media of two women being paraded naked among hundreds of men on May 4th. News now from Pakistan, where a train tragedy has killed 34 people and injured at least 100 others after a passenger train derailed in the Singh province on Sunday. The country's railway minister hinted that the tragedy could have happened due to a technical fault or even sabotage. Here's more.
Minutes after 10 coaches of the Hazara Express fell off the tracks. Some 1,000 passengers were on board. Locals say they heard a massive bang. And the scale of the incident indicated a big toll.
Suddenly the train started shaking and we felt that we would die. The train was jolting and we were falling upon one another. Allah saved us.
It was so sudden and we were seated comfortably until then. We heard the growling sounds and I gathered that the train has derailed. Then a storm of dust spread. Then a berth fell on my head and there was blood all over.
It happened soon after the train left Sarhari station in Sindh province's Nawab Shah. The spot is some 375 kilometers from Karachi city. The train was headed from Karachi to Rawalpindi in the north. It was the locals who rushed in first, pulling out injured men, women and children from the train. Mangled steel from the undercarriage twisted and buckled before rescue teams moved in. Reports say a few hundred passengers badly injured were rushed to hospitals in Nawab Shah. The death count grew through the day before settling past the 30 mark.
My husband and son were killed in the crash. 3 sons are injured. 1 is in the ICU and 2 are in the hospital.
Railway infrastructure in Pakistan and in many parts of South Asia has come in for flack for being unmaintained, overburdened and with poor safety standards. That's the reason cited for the almost regular incidents of mishaps that kill scores each year. 2 trains collided near Daharki in Sindh in June 2021, killing at least 65 people and injuring about 150 others. At least 75 passengers were burnt to death in a fire aboard the Tezgam Express train in October 2019. Pakistan's Railway Minister Khwaja Saad Rafiq, however, gave the probe a new dimension. There can be 2 reasons. First, that it was a mechanical fault, or the fault was created. It might be sabotage. We will investigate it, he said. Does that point at a darker reality? As it is, at least 34 lives have been lost. For many others who were injured, life may change forever. Are negligence, poor upkeep, lack of accountability to blame? Will lessons ever be learnt?
News now from Bangladesh, where its worst dengue fever outbreak on record has killed more than 300 people this year. The spike in new cases has overwhelmed the country's vulnerable medical system and prompted calls for a better coordinated response. We tell you more in our next report.
An unending abuse of the environment. Polluting and violating at will comes back to bite. All of South Asia has felt the dengue onslaught post-rains hard on a regular basis. Bangladesh has scaled an unwelcome new peak this year. This rainy season alone, the death toll in Bangladesh was recorded at 303 as of the 6th of August, way beyond the 283 in 2022, making it a record set for 2 successive years. The number of cases reported at some 63,700 is up nearly 8-fold from the year 2000, when tracking of the mosquito-borne viral disease began. And it shows on the ground, in hospitals bursting at the seams. Major public hospitals have been asked to add hundreds of beds for dengue patients. The influx of patients is a near constant.
Since we came here, the doctors and nurses told us that they cannot provide us with a proper bed, but if we stay, they would treat us. We had no other choice but to arrange things on the floor for my mother and sister.
My son works on a cargo ferry. When he got sick, his boss admitted him here and called us. I came from the village to take care of my son. Today is our 4th day in the hospital.
Authorities say the peak has still not arrived. The government has launched a series of awareness campaigns, now an annual effort that picks up with the rainy season when the threat is at its worst. Encouraging use of mosquito nets, reducing water accumulation and stagnation around homes and public venues. Wiping out mosquito larvae are big focus areas. Besides advice for protection of school children, like all-covering clothing. Researchers have warned that the peak of the dengue outbreak in Bangladesh is yet to come. Aedes mosquitoes, the species that transmits dengue and Zika, start a breeding burst during the wet season. As the rains ease, they move into urban areas in search of water with the virus they carry.
When the pre-monsoon rains started in April, so did the Aedes mosquito breeding. The virus had already spread within the community, therefore it was also being transmitted. This is the reason why we are seeing such a high number of dengue cases in July. This will probably increase further in August and September.
The annual spread of dengue in Bangladesh and several countries in South Asia has highlighted the need for prioritized and electronic-based surveillance and targeted interventions. Surveillance, awareness, training and engagement programs that gather speed during the rains cannot remain a part-time plan. The numbers themselves, the new casualty records, spell out that the region can ill afford the neglect.
Up next, let's take a look at what else is making headlines across South Asia.
A UNICEF analysis says South Asia has the highest percentage of children exposed to extreme high temperatures compared to other regions of the world. The report estimates that 76% of children under the age of 18, that is 460 million children in the Indian subcontinent, are exposed to extreme high temperatures where 83 or more days in a year exceed 35 degrees Celsius. This means that 3 in 4 children in South Asia are already exposed to extreme high temperature compared to only 1 in 3 children globally. July was the hottest month ever recorded, raising further concerns about a future where children, including those living in South Asia, are expected to face more frequent and severe heat waves, largely due to climate change.
The Maldives top court has barred jailed former President Abdullah Yameen Abdul Gayoom from fighting the country's September presidential election. The ruling has come as a setback for the Progressive Party of Maldives, or PPM, which declared Yameen its candidate before his December conviction for corruption and money laundering over kickbacks from a private company while he was president. The party last week challenged the Election Commission's block on his candidacy because he is serving an 11-year jail sentence, arguing the Commission had misinterpreted the constitutional prerequisites for presidential candidates. The South Asian archipelago is in full election mode. despite his Maldivian Democratic Party splitting in June after a public fallout between Soli and another former president, Mohammad Nasheed. On the other hand, Yamin, who is the half-brother of former dictator Maumoon Abdul Gayoom, was seeking a comeback after losing power in 2018. He campaigned against Indian influence in Maldives, raising concerns in New Delhi.
As Bangladesh gears up for national polls set to be held in January next year, a survey has revealed that the country's Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, has the backing of an overwhelming majority. The survey by Washington-based International Republican Institute said 70% of the respondents opined that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her party, Awami League, are doing a good job. Most people surveyed also approved of the government's role in development activity, particularly roads and bridges. Analysts believe the rise in Hasina's approval ratings in the last 5 years stems from her COVID management initiatives, infrastructure projects and safety net schemes. The findings come even as supporters of the opposition party took to the streets recently, demanding Sheikh Hasina's resignation.
Moving to Afghanistan now, it will be 2 years on the 15th of August since the Taliban took over Afghanistan for a second time. Soon after Kabul fell, many universities based out of the United States came up with scholarships to help the displaced Afghan students. Up next, we bring you a story of one such student who left her homeland to fulfill her dreams.
Remember these horrific scenes from 2 years back. Chaos and confusion erupted at the Kabul airport after the Taliban takeover. Among many who managed to flee the country was Fahima Sultani. She fled her homeland because she knew at the time that she didn't stand a chance. She says she knew that her dreams and future here stood shattered forever. Sultani was lucky enough to have reached the United States of America. During the pandemic, she studied online through the Asian University for Women in Bangladesh. She is now pursuing graduation at the Arizona State University, one of some 60 Afghan women studying there.
One night that we were trying to get into the airport, they stopped our bus. They put the refills toward us and said that if you don't turn back and go home, we will just fire at you and kill all of you. 2 to 3 members of Taliban came even inside the bus with the big guns in their hands, said no Bangladesh, no education, go back home. Go back home.
Sultani often thinks of her family back home, of her sister who studied in university when she left, but who can scarcely venture outdoors now. Women of Sultani's generation, born around the time the US ousted the Taliban after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, grew up attending school and watching as women pursued careers. The return of the Taliban in 2021 upended those freedoms.
I wanted to get out of Afghanistan to be able to continue my education, but also one of the hardest because I left my relatives, my siblings, my parents, all behind. Everything that I had there.
Education and employment for them dimmed and faded out. Getting out of Afghanistan for education overseas was a distant dream for most. The US invasion in 2001 was a turning point of sorts. Scholarships for youth emerged. The initial flurry of scholarships, efforts to assist Afghan students have continued. The Qatar Scholarship was created for Afghanis, helping 250 students get scholarships at dozens of colleges and universities in the US. The need for many more remains and efforts are being made. The University of Tulsa in Oklahoma announced 2 scholarships for Afghans seeking refuge in the US. Later, the university created 5 more scholarships for young Afghans. According to the Afghan American Community Organization, in 2021, scholarships worth $70,000 were granted to undergraduate and graduate Afghan American students. In 2022, scholarships worth $20,000 were given out.
think they've broken down a lot of stereotypes. I really do. You know, the world might see Afghan women as voiceless or helpless. Well, I can tell you for sure that these women are not voiceless or helpless as a whole. They're very resourceful, they're very brilliant, and even tenacious at times.
They're doing remarkably well, given that they were uprooted from their homes and from their families in a very difficult situation. The evacuation itself was pretty frightening for all of them.
After making their way to universities and colleges across the US over the last 2 years, many are nearing graduation and planning their futures. It's a silver lining of sorts in an otherwise dark cloud that Afghanistan has turned into today. There remain hundreds, if not thousands, like Fahima Sultani in Afghanistan, who stare into a dark future, waiting for Lady Luck to smile.
That's all we have time for on the show, but let's take a look at Sri Lanka, where cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar made a new pitch, wondering what I'm talking about. Take a look at this as we wrap up Inside South Asia. I'm Bhairavi Singh, signing off.
They understand. I just wanted to use alphabet. Yeah.